What's up, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros, the football podcast, week 3 reaction. Oh my lordy, were things good and bad. Hearts were broken, leagues were won. We've even got a game that's still going on as the Dallas Cowboys are roaring back. We'll see how it goes. I am Chris Welsh. Joining me is Scott Bogman, Deepak Chona. We're breaking it all down, fantasy implications, and of course, injuries, which we're going to hit here in just a second. If you guys are listening on the podcast side, make sure you check us out over on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasypros. Make sure you're subscribed, like it, put on the notifications to make sure that, you know, whenever we're live or we got any videos posting. Plus, we got great giveaways. And then the inverse. If you're watching on the YouTube, check out the podcast for all the live reactions. Bogman, my heart is broken as much as I couldn't have been more correct about Juwan Jennings and a me fest. The 49ers just absolutely pissed that game away, and it hurts. I'm hurting right now to have such a great fantasy day, analyst day, betting day. None of it matters because the 49ers are pathetic, and I need to find a new team.
I mean, we'll take 3 out of 4.
Years.
We'll take 3 out of 4, right? 3 out of 4 is not a bad day still. So I cannot believe they choked that game away. Just great plays by the Rams at the end. Your defense was completely gassed, but garbage. I started Jennings in a bunch of spots, so that felt good.
I'm the meme, the guy, I forget the show, but he's just like standing there. Then he's in the swing. Then he's in the empty pool. I'm that right now.
Is that
so
Narcos or one of those?
Yeah. I've watched the show. I can't even remember.
I haven't even watched it, but
I have. I just can't remember. But Deepak Chona, Sport MD analysis in the house. Deepak, let's break all these down. Let's hopefully not break some hearts, and hopefully no heads or legs are broken. Devonta Smith left the game early with a concussion. Justin Herbert, he was questionable to come into the game with that high ankle sprain, and it got re-injured, it looks like. Sam Laporta was carted off. Adam Thielen hurt his hamstring on a touchdown catch, and obviously A.J. Brown's still dealing with it. So let's start breaking them down. Let's start with Devonta Smith and that concussion. He was getting all the catches. The Eagles cannot afford it. What's your level of concern with Devonta Smith?
Yeah, the average player on this would miss 1 week and then return the second. So the downside to the concussion protocol is it's not totally predictable from our standpoint, from a fantasy and betting standpoint, but it generally speaking takes that first week. So we'll kind of have to follow this one towards the end of the week. There's a small chance he gets cleared, but most likely missing 1 game.
And Boggs, if he weren't to miss, it's just you just move past it, because without A.J. Brown, like, he's the guy. He was being the guy. Obviously, Goddard too. This is a weird game because Goddard, like last week, was just kind of and won me a league at the very end. But then this week, he was just the number 1 target. So if Smith is in, do you just blinders? And if he's out, is it just Dallas Goedert tight end number 1 next week?
I mean, I don't know if he's going to be tight end number 1, but he should be higher up there. Dotson had a lot of snaps as well. So I think Jahan Dotson would probably be the next man up should Devontae miss and A.J. Brown miss. We'll see about Brown. But, just not a great situation. I hate it for Philly. Offense is not good outside of Barkley.
Yeah, and Deepak, I believe also, just kind of sticking on it for just 1 second, I believe Trey McBride also was dealing with a concussion and got knocked out. We don't have him on the artwork here, but just since we're in the concussion protocol area, anything to add on his side?
No, it's very much the same type of diagnosis and protocol clearance. He was, last I saw, reported getting evaluated for a concussion. So not formally in the protocol yet. It's a pretty high rate of going in from that step, but to be determined a little bit on McBride as well.
So jumping back into this, let's go to Justin Herbert, the high ankle sprain. I was actually kind of shocked that he did get into the game. Looked okay. I thought they wouldn't really move him around a whole bunch. Maybe part of that was kind of reality, re-injured. What do you think this is going to look like? That's like the biggest fear of playing on the high ankle sprain is the re-injury. So that's, I don't know if it's catastrophic, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The re-injury is typically worse than the original. Now, the thing with these high ankles, and we find for these very like mega elite quarterbacks who have the combination of strong mobility, but also that big arm, they can usually compensate for most of the throws that you would make with that arm strength rather than having to push off of that ankle. And then the baseline mobility makes him kind of middle of the pack, I would say. But the key is now he was walking in a boot. Not a tremendous limp, at least in the post-game press conference. So those are all reassuring signs. It sounds to me like he would probably be trending towards playing this coming week, but with the similar limitations and a very low threshold to pull him out. But we'll just have to see. They're getting an MRI tomorrow, and then we'll find out for sure.
Bugs, you were pretty like I could word to use dismissive because we'd picked him up and I said the word Quentin Johnston and you acted like I offended you. But yeah, now
you still offend me.
Well, he scored a touchdown on your team, but
yeah, he did on completely broken coverage. They had nothing else. I mean, so I just don't like that offense without Herbert, though.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with it is like whatever you feel about Johnson, he is getting some stuff. Ladd gets some stuff, but now it's with like Heineke. So it's just like what is startable on that team? Dobbins was kind of shut down, not as bad as I thought. They also just stopped going to Gus Edwards. They had one carry through the first half or three quarters, so it really was J.K. Dobbins. Is there any piece that you truly trust? I haven't even looked. I should look at what the Chargers matchup is next week. If you could foresee J.K. Dobbins being like the only guy.
It's just J.K. Dobbins. I mean, right now, yeah, I would, because Palmer comes back probably next week. And then that it's a big gross mix of those wide receivers. No tight end has really stepped up. So, yeah, I mean, without them and they have the Chiefs next week, Dobbins is probably the only real startable guy in most leagues.
Let's talk about Sam Laporta. This one, I'm not sure I've still even heard. So Deepak, shed some light if you have. He was carted off the field, but then he returned. There was something incident like I think last 2 weeks where George Kittle was carted out and everyone freaked out and it was like he's just getting hydrated or something like that. I didn't hear what Laporta's was.
Yeah, well, the video on Laporta shows his ankle turning inwards. So that's that low ankle mechanism. They went to the locker room. The cart is kind of a precaution, I think, in case it's fractured. But going to the locker room and getting x-rays and then coming back in tells us it probably was not fractured. So we're probably looking at a low ankle sprain there. Most players would be able to return the following week. So we'll have to just monitor practice reports, but a little bit less concern on his.
Man, and then Boggs is probably going to be a discussion this whole week. Tight end's a mess. And I know it was a mess, but now we're 3 weeks into this mess where the big guys are not being the big guys. There's just these like median return. Brock Bowers was tight end 1 for so many people, and it was just the tight end position. A lot of people victory lapping their leagues that moved the tight end position to the wide receiver / tight end position, which is a very, in baseball terms, if you play fantasy baseball, it's a very save holds type of thing where people are like, this isn't really working. Let's open up the field a little bit. Tight ends are a pretty big disaster. I don't know if there's any takeaway on Laporta. Unfortunately, you're kind of stuck because you're not benching. You're not benching any of these tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with him this week. Hopefully, I think, like Deepak said, hopefully he's going to be up. But they went to David Montgomery a lot today with Brock Wright in there blocking. So maybe that's going to be the thing. But yeah, hopefully Laporta's okay. I think he came back for, one snap in the second half, then went right back out. So fingers crossed that he's back up for this week.
Deepak, Adam Thielen, he caught that touchdown, was grabbing at his leg on the hamstring. I know Thielen's not like massively fantasy relevant to a lot of people, but guess what? Andy Dalton made these pieces fantasy relevant. Deontay Johnson went absolutely off. Adam Thielen was involved. Chuba Hubbard was able to succeed. Completely side statement. But everybody that's like, well, how is Bruce Young supposed to succeed with these weapons? Okay. Like, let's have that conversation again with how it went down this week. All of that aside, Adam Thielen could move into semi-relevance, but what do you think this is going to do? You think this is going to take him out a week?
Yeah, usually it would. The average on these is 2 weeks, and it's very much just have to see how the practice progresses. But his looked like at least like higher end of mild or low moderate severity, and then add in age of 34, and that also kind of predicts a little bit of a slower return with a higher re-injury risk. So this could really lead to a little bit of an up and down season here.
Boy. And then just lastly, just want to end that. We already talked about the Eagles situation with Devontae Smith. I believe it's Mike Mayer that's running the Fantasy Pros account in the chat, which is another cool thing, answering questions and having fun. But he pointed out, which is a really good point, the Eagles have their bye in week 5. So, this Devontae Smith issue, even more reason to keep him out next week. I think they've already kind of talked about it. Is your expectation both of these guys, moving back to AJ Brown, they don't rush AJ Brown back, let them both kind of recover for the 2 weeks, and they both return in week 6? What's your assessment on Brown at this point?
Yeah, I mean, that would be, in my opinion, a very reasonable way to do things. With Brown, this week was kind of a 50-50 in terms of when players would or would not come back. And then after that, it would have likely been the week that lands on their bye. So yes, just as you said, the following, it would be not unsurprising to see AJ Brown back. The reason is with these hamstrings, if you rush them back, the re-injury risk is a little bit higher. And as you had said earlier, the re-injuries are usually worse than the original. So with that in mind, Devontae Smith probably not going to be allowed to play in most cases. And then, yeah, it could be a minute before we see them really shine for you.
Tell you what, Sport MD analysis, Deepak's one of the best in the business. A lot of negative, if you're in the Twitter world, a lot of negative medical assessment, Twitter fantasy space stuff out there. Not with this guy. Deepak is the best in the business. You got to follow him. Check out his website, Sport MD analysis on the Twitter. Great social videos we have out there. Deepak, you're the best. Even though you bring bad news, it's always with a little bit of charm and really without a bunch of bullcrap either. So Deepak, we love you, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Deepak.
All right. We'll be right back.
Guys.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to break all these games down right after this. Yeah, we're all passionate about fantasy football, obviously. But sometimes there is a little bit missing. What's missing? A team. But not your fantasy team. No, a team of like-minded, passionate fantasy football fans. And if that is not part of your everyday, Fantasy Pros Discord might be your answer. Chat with other fans, debate strategies, and find leagues to join. Every week, get your questions answered live in our AMA live Discord sessions. Want to know if you should start that sleeper or avoid a risky trade? Our experts, they're here to help. And if you got a question, you might even end up on a podcast. It's not just about advice, though. It's about community, with channels for every aspect of fantasy football, draft advice, waivers, props, to dynasty, best ball, and a ton more. You're going to find like-minded fans just like you. So join the best fantasy team. Join Fantasy Pros on Discord at fantasypros.com/chat today. Get your questions answered and connect with fans. Don't just play fantasy football, live it with Fantasy Pros on Discord. Look at that guy. That guy thought he had the whole world ahead of him. Everything was coming up Welsh. That was a happy guy. I remember that guy. We don't look back on that guy.
That guy was the only one to beat me last week. 10-1. Welsh was the only one to beat me last week in fantasy. Unbelievable.
Well, I beat some people this week, and I imagine some of you did as well if you had Juwan Jennings in the lineup. So we're going to be talking all about it and having a lot of fun with it as we break these down, just like Big Scoot here started Juwan Jennings. That's right, Jauan for Juwan Jennings, having that big week. We're going to be breaking all of these suckers down. But if you guys are hanging out with us, a Cowboy Ravens game just ended. So for all the newbies, not only do I want to make sure you are subscribed, but there's a reason to be subscribed, my friends. This is your chance. If you want to win a signed helmet from Devontae Smith, this might be all that he's doing over the next couple weeks, assigning this helmet for you. You can get it for free, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction. And all you got to do is head over to fantasypros.com/contest. Complete the form. Then you can download the My Playbook app. You can leave a review for the podcast. You can follow us on X, Instagram, TikTok. And guess what? I say all of those things because if you do them all, you will get entries for all of them. So we'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can be alerted of new episodes and so you can claim your prize, my friends. All right, let's break these down. Let's get into this game action. Let's start with one of a couple teams that eliminated maybe everybody from Survivor. There's no one left in Survivor. If you are there in week 4, you're a miracle worker. Tell us what to do, Obi-Wan Kenobi, because all the good teams, theoretical good teams, keep losing. The Denver Broncos stomped down on Tampa Bay. I do want to give a shout out on Betting Pros because Matt Peralt was talking about, it was some wild, like, Baker Mayfield coming off of big wins at home, struggles and sucks. And it was like, oh my God, it was one, not just a spread play. This was the Denver Broncos annihilated. Bo Nix was not horrible. Broncos running backs, actually not that bad. That's a lot of their analysis. Bucky Irving continues to look like the dude, and Baker was absolutely trash Bogman. So break it down on the Denver 26, Tampa 7.
Yeah, I think you just misread there because the Broncos running backs were pretty bad. But Bo Nix.
Well, McLaughlin had a touchdown. That's the only thing I wanted to point out.
Oh, yeah, that sick move, too, that juked that guy out of his shoes. So that was great. But outside of that, you have 5 catches or 5 rushes, 7 yards, 1 score. Bo Nix, 216, making some of these guys relevant, too. I mean, put Sutton back on the map, right? Because this was becoming one of those situations where it was going to be like Bryce Young in Carolina, where you were just like, I don't think I can start any of these Broncos. The run game didn't help us a lot, but at least Cortland Sutton was up with 11 targets, 7 catches, 68 yards. LJ Humphrey seems maybe he's moving into that number 2 role over Reynolds or Franklin right now. But the run game was gross. Tyler Beatty actually led them in rushing, 9 carries for 70 yards, even though he only had 13 snaps. Javonte still led in snaps, but he had 5 carries for 12 yards, 4 catches for 29. He lost a fumble.
Let me ask you something.
It's just been miserable.
Can you cut Javonte Williams? I know you're going to be like, I don't want it. Can you cut him?
Yeah, I mean, we're a third of the way through your regular season, or a quarter of the way through your regular season. You can cut him. Yeah, I think you can.
Like to your point, to like what, and I'm like reading your mind here. Like you don't want to cut a guy like Javonte because like it could get right, and the 4th week could get right. But guess what? There's not really any signs. Like there's no great. I mean, they beat up on these guys, and they still didn't run the ball that well.
I'm not dumping him to pick up Tyler Beatty or anything, but you know, if we hear that Mixon and Pierce are down again and Akers is available, might be a better option. You know what I mean? So there could be better options out there than Jaleel or Javonte. I think both of them are probably droppable at this point, but you know, you're at least benching them. You do not want to consider starting these guys really. And Denver's got the Jets next week on extra rest. Not fun.
Speaking of starts, do you think you're going to be in a level of comfortability of starting Bucky Irving moving forward? Because he was explosive. He had 9 carries. They've kind of like been a little bit weird about throwing him the ball. That's Rachaad White's game still. But you're starting to see this vibe where it's like, we don't want Rachaad White to get 25 plus touches. Like Bucky Irving is one of those backs that it's great 4 plays into a drive when a defense starts to get gas, or in the late second quarter. This is a guy that's starting to burn defenses. Do you think he is going to be flex worthy, especially with bye weeks coming up? That's probably like a no-brainer. But do you think like you got the decision between guys like Eckler, or a lot of people unfortunately have like the Dowdles and the Chase Browns out there? I think I would prioritize Bucky Irving to start over all those guys.
I think so too. The one issue that I have with Bucky is he still is not seeing a ton of snaps, only 18 in this game. You know, so we had Rachaad White still with 42 and 24 routes run. Bucky only ran 7 routes. So Bucky is the more effective runner right now. And on his 18 snaps, he touched the ball 12 times. So it's they're kind of telling you when Bucky comes in, he's getting the football. So I'm still a little nervous starting him, but there are other players that have played just terribly that I wouldn't mind starting Bucky over. And you got to imagine that with him looking so much better than Rachaad White, and maybe it's this groin injury for Rachaad, maybe he'll look better next week coming off of it or whatever, but you would think that he gets more involved because he just looks like the better running back right now.
You would think. Philly is at Tampa. That should be a game. And Denver is at New York. By the way, shout out to Nelson. It was Narcos that we were talking about. That's the meme with, I'm still forgetting like what it's about. I watched like 4 episodes of it, but Narcos, we're just sitting there depressed. That's going to be me all minute I'm done with this. I'm going to go be depressed. So I have to like play up right now. Minnesota is absolutely no joke. And I think they're just a tough analysis for a lot of people outside of just good, because they beat up on Houston 34-7. Darnold continues to look like a sneaky streamer or a fantastic super flex play. The Texans didn't have a lot of efficiency. They didn't try to run the ball really. Akers scored a touchdown, but it was on a pass. And CJ Stroud just struggled with some of the throws, with some of just the overall wide receivers dominating the Minnesota Vikings. He looked bad. He looked off. The Vikings didn't. And the Vikings, we're going to have to take them absolutely serious moving forward. And the last thing I want to point out was Aaron Jones seemed like a really hard fade this week because of how Houston had been stopping the run. So much so Erickson had the under on rushing yards. And not only was he efficient in the passing game, he had that huge explosive run, which kind of put him over. But Aaron Jones was really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota just looks like a very good team right now. Like you said, Sam Darnold with his 4 touchdowns. There was a little scare in there when he was being evaluated for his knee, but Jefferson looks great. Naylor, I believe that's touchdowns in back-to-back weeks here.
Yeah, I think so.
And your boy Aaron Jones looks awesome. 38 snaps for him for only 22 for Chandler. Ran one more route as well and just looked awesome. So real nice to see, and just not a great day for the Texans. I mean, they were clearly one-sided with Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce down.
This might be like weird analysis, but I feel like Diggs had 12 targets in the game. You had Dell and Nico combined for 16. That's still a lot, and that's good. But if Stephon Diggs is your primary wide receiver, there's something going wrong. Like there's the defense has honed in when you're taking Nico out of the game. He only caught 6 of 10 targets in there. Dell didn't really get going until the second half. It was kind of odd. What I would ask you is, Houston's got Jacksonville next week. If Mixon is out again, which they're kind of alluding to, do you think they are going to get back into that running game? And are you comfortable starting Akers?
Yeah, I think I'd be comfortable starting, more comfortable than Javonte right now. I can tell you that. But yeah, I think you can. I don't think it will be. I mean, running backs had 12 carries in this game for Houston, right? So it got out of hand real fast for them. They had to pass the ball a bunch. So I still hold firm to Nico is your 1. Diggs and Tank Dell will flip in between. They both had, Diggs had a good day. Tank Dell was okay. He also got nicked up at the end. So we'll have to see what that's all about during the week. But I think that you're not going to want to throw the ball as much, even though they just really didn't possess the ball that much in this game. So I think everybody's going to be okay in Houston. I'm not worried about this game, but it didn't look good.
Quick one. Everybody made a big old to-do about Derek Carr this week. Old David Carr in my head. Everyone made a huge deal about him. Quarterback 1, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely stunk it up. Everyone's pissed off about it. Do you, not to set this up like that, but do you think, like, where we are looking at a guy like Carr and giving him that credit, do you think Darnold deserves the credit of that
course.
Like fringy quarterback 12 to 14 range? Like, they're going to keep doing this. If David Carr was the guy, Sam Darnold is, I think, blasting past him. He's got Green Bay next week.
Look, I pray at the church of Kevin O'Connell, right? Like, they are going to pass the ball a ton. That is what this offense is designed to do. So the quarterback from Minnesota, unless we're down to 3rd, 4th stringers, like we did get to last year, but unless we're down there, Sam Darnold is capable. He showed that against a good defense. This defense ate up Caleb Williams alive last week, and Darnold sat back there cool as a cucumber, slinging that ball around. So, yeah, I think moving forward, Darnold is a really good start, and he is, looking like a boost towards these wide receivers other than a hindrance.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, oh, by the way, the Jacksonville, Houston, Minnesota, Green Bay, if you guys want. The Pittsburgh Steelers' first 3-0 team. I don't even know how many teams are 3-0 coming out the gates. My world is crumbling with the Niners. So I just know I know a really decent 1-2 team that probably doesn't deserve to win any more games. But the Pittsburgh Steelers deserve to win them all. They're 3-0. They beat the Chargers 20-10 in Pittsburgh. Justin Fields got it done again. He was able to get the ball to George Pickens, which I think is kind of a continued key. You're seeing Freiermuth not be awesome, but continuously get involved. We know Herbert re-aggravated the ankle. We talked about that a little bit ago. And Jaylen Warren's just not a thing anymore. So maybe we work ourselves back here. Is Jaylen Warren as cuttable as Javonte Williams?
Yeah, I think so, especially at the end of this game when they're sitting on a lead, which is the game plan. Obviously, I don't think this is going to happen all year for Pittsburgh. The offense is still behind, right? Justin Herbert struggled, wasn't 100%, really took advantage of that and looked good. But yeah, Warren got phased out. Najee had all the carries, 18 for him, and then Patterson came on to seal it. Warren really had like one series in the first quarter. Maybe they will get back to giving him more touches and focus more on him. I do think early he is the better runner. I mean, Najee, for God's sake, sometimes he just cannot see the hole in front of him. It's just he does not have, he has that Trent Richardson vision on occasion, which is super frustrating. Warren has better vision than that. He's slippery. So I'd rather have him come in early and Najee be the closer to kind of wear out that defense, but it's just not what they're doing right now. It's all Najee all day, and then Patterson came in to help close. So Warren seems to be being phased out. And I don't mean to, I know before I kind of passed on Quentin Johnston. I'm still not into Quentin Johnston, especially with a backup quarterback coming in, but he is getting a bunch of snaps. He's getting looks. He got that first, he was the first look on that play, and that was busted coverage, and he scored a touchdown. So I don't mean to completely dismiss him. I'm just not sure we're wholly and completely seeing a QJ breakout here. That's
well, we also said at this point, if Herbert's not in the offense, we're not really sure what is trustworthy. It's not to say that someone's not going to like have good games, of course, but it's like if you have real decisions, Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey are probably not going to be in the wide receiver 3 or flex territory next week. Dobbins is going to really be the only one, and they're going up against Kansas City next week. So
I think everyone will be starting Jennings over Quentin Johnston this week. So
that's going to be a tough one. And, just the only other thing is Justin Fields. Justin Fields is kind of like in the Darnold thing. Maybe that's a good point. Let me ask you, who would you rather have? They got Indy next week, which I guess Indy stepped up a little bit, but I think that's more about Chicago being absolutely embarrassing on offense.
A little column A, a little column B. Yeah,
absolutely embarrassing. But like the Colts defense has been bad, especially against a run, and you're going to get a quarterback that is willing to just drop it down. I'm not trying to tie you down here, but like,
of course,
Darnold or Fields, do you think next week? And the B side of this is like, do you think they're both going to be right at that QB top 12 range?
I think they can at least float in there for sure. Like you said, I haven't done my rankings yet, but it has to be in consideration. I mean, I don't think that the Russell Wilson as the incumbent starter, but he's not available. I think all that's done. Fields is the dude moving forward. Maybe Russell Wilson gets traded to Miami at this point. I don't know. But last time the Steelers traded a quarterback, immediately Ben got hurt and they were down to Duck Hodges. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, Fields is good, and he's been running the ball effectively as well. So wheels up for Fields. I like him.
Interesting one would be if Herbert were down for quite a bit. I don't know. Russ seems like a very Jim Harbaugh guy. If there were two players that were meant to be together, I feel like it's Russell Wilson and Jim Harbaugh, but maybe that's just me. Difficult decisions. If you have some Chargers, you might need to be hitting the waivers. And that's why we can hook you up with the waiver assistant. Get ahead of your league mates with expert add and drop advice right at your fingertips when you download the My Playbook app. Just sync your league. If you haven't already done that, download the My Playbook app, I guess, first, then sync your league. And it'll start telling you based off of ECR projections, everything above ECR, powered by the industry leaders. You're going to get suggestions based on your roster and what is available in your league. I was actually using it all week long. It's fantastic. I use it in a lot of my sleeper leagues. You can do that today. Waiver is going to be the important next 48 hours or so. Not that everything else isn't. Starting sits right around the corner, but we need to figure out who we're picking up. So let My Playbook help you out. Maybe even do it for you. Download the app today. FantasyPros.com/MyPlaybook. Go to the App Store. You can go to My Playbook as well and get in on the waiver assistant. All right, let's move on to the next game. Where are we at?
Philly. New Orleans.
Yep, Philly beat New Orleans 15-12, just like everybody thought that it was going to be, with absolutely no touchdowns. Don't want to say I told you so, but Bogman, what did I say about Rashid Shaheed?
No, okay. I don't remember you saying anything about Rashid Shaheed, but he did drop.
Get him out of here! No,
two massive drops in this game. This wasn't. I know everyone's upset about Derek Carr, and you have a right to be. He was not good, but it wasn't all on Derek Carr. Shaheed had a couple huge drops. It just didn't work. Philly played great. Angry Philly after that choke job on Monday Night Football came to play in this one. I mean, Hurts looked terrible in the first half, looked better in the second half. Barkley looked really good here. So But I understand the concerns about Derek Carr, and let's go with Fields over next week. Let's
Oh
go
yeah,
with Sam
no.
Darnold.
Oh, Philly's got Tampa though, so I'm not sure that we want to be like, we have some good matchups next week. I just want to address that real quick because on the buy, sell, and trade show, I put Rashid Shaheed on there, and people probably don't like it because Rashid had these 2 big explosive plays, but like I also think today was semi-representative of exactly what happens.
Yes.
Shutout to the credit of Rashid Shaheed, 2 were right there. He could have had 2 touchdowns. He dropped them. But
I bet the longest reception
I know you did
this week because I mean he hit it in 50% of his games, 6 of his games his rookie season. But he is hit or miss.
And the other thing I wanted to point out, which was part of like the analysis, I think a lot of people were changing on him, was you got a lot of this new design plays. Those were gone. You didn't see them attempting to move him in motion, to throw screen passes, to make sure the ball is in his hand, to make explosive plays. There was no offense in this game, and they still didn't do that. So again, like, I just think instead of everyone's like, oh my God, Rashid Shaheed, he's going to be an RB2. It's finally happening. It's like, no, this is actually exactly what it is. He's like an RB3 that he's, to the credit, they still try to get him in explosive plays, and I'm not going to ding him for that. But I was like, hey, probably a good time to maybe sell off if you can sell him high. Also, I was big on this was Olave week, and it was. He caught all 6 of his targets, 86 for a touchdown. That was great. They need to continuously target him more. I think that's where we kind of move from that. Outside of the, we talked so much about the Philly situation. What's your assessment be if you have no Smith and you have no AJ Brown? They're going up against Tampa next week. Barkley, Jalen Hurts has not looked great. I got to be honest with you. Yeah, Goddard is there, but Jalen has just not looked fantastic at the start of this season, and now he's out receiving options.
He did look much better in the second half, so give him credit. He still had 300 yards in this game, although he didn't throw a touchdown, and he did have the pick and probably a couple throws that could have been picks. But Goddard was huge, and he will be that safety blanket moving forward. I mean, I don't know how many times you're going to expect 10 catches for 170 and like 61-yard burst where he looks like the slowest man on the field, but still somehow I think any player in the NFL, most players are scoring on that play, and he got 61 and was tackled like 10 yards short. It was also late. He looked gassed. I mean, but yeah, I mean, if both those guys are down, wheels up for him. Dotson had a lot of snaps in this game as well, 62 snaps. He actually led the Eagles. 40 routes run, led them in routes as well, tied with Goddard, actually. So Dotson is a really good option moving forward here.
Do you think he's going to be in your top 48 of wide receivers next week?
Yeah, I think, especially if both those guys are down, which with the bye week coming up, like our boy Mayer said, yes, I think he will be their number 1 option this week.
Green Bay beat up on Tennessee. That kind of went both ways. I heard a lot of people on that Tennessee side. In Green Bay, they looked good under Malik. Malik had over 200 passing yards, over 70 yards rushing, 2 scores. Jordan Love was relatively close to coming back. He didn't. They saved him for next week, but Malik got stuff done. He was able to get Watson had his big play. You had Jaden Reed kind of. A lot of these numbers look very similar to Jordan Love games. They're just like maybe a little bit more expanded because they're going to throw more than 19 times. How positive of an increase are those wide receivers for Green Bay going to be for you with Jordan Love back in as they go up against Minnesota at home next week?
Hugely, because I think number one, if Minnesota keeps on this pace, they are going to score points. So I think Green Bay is going to have to match them point for point next week. And the run game has not looked good for Green Bay after week 1. Josh Jacobs didn't look good last week. He didn't particularly look great this week. 14 carries for 43 yards. Of course, Tennessee queuing in on that run game with Malik Willis in there, but Willis looked good. Emmanuel Wilson took that screen to the house for a touchdown, which was like a Bill Walsh dream draw play. Did you see that screen that Emmanuel Wilson scored on?
Oh, yeah.
It looked awesome. Everything was perfect, like perfect throw, perfect catch, weaving in and out of the traffic. That was such a great play for the Packers there. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Jordan Love makes all of these wide receivers viable again. And, Will Levis, it might be time.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't.
It might be
the wide
time
receivers
to go.
viable.
Right. Like, I know everyone thinks that Tepper made the decision to bench Bryce Young because Canales said, Bryce Young's my guy and all that stuff. I don't know. I mean, flip a coin, maybe. He's a bad owner, so it seems. So that is definitely a possibility. This would be from the coach because Will Levis looks miserable. We've already seen Callahan screaming at him on the sideline. He made more bad decisions in this game, and I think Mason Rudolph might be their guy next week. Maybe not. You don't want to ruin the kid's confidence, right? You want to keep him out there through some struggles, but you got the rest of this team to think of. DeAndre Hopkins had a nice little resurgence and starting to look healthier. So that was really good for them, but it cost us Calvin Ridley in this game because 1 catch for 9.
Yeah.
Oh,
Targeted
man,
three times on 34 pass attempts. So
Ooh.
Ridley goes down, but I bench Hopkins everywhere. So I presented myself as sacrifice.
Wasn't even playing
tribute.
Yeah.
I present myself as tribute for Hopkins. I finally benched
wasn't
him.
Even playing many snaps. He's like 4th in snaps last week.
They said they were building him
was
up.
Much better. Yeah,
they were trying to build him up. He's built back up, probably semi-startable. Tennessee has got Miami on Monday Night Football next week.
They might have the ball for most of the game.
47 minutes of the game they might have the ball for, so that might be on the lookout. Another one of those survivor things. I saw multiple people get slapped as the New York Giants beat Cleveland in Cleveland. Malik Neighbors, him, of course. This week, we're back to Ford. No, we're not doing the thing that they were doing. Deshaun Watson was able to get Amari Cooper back involved, which I think huge, 12 targets, 86. Getting the ball vertical for this team was huge, but Malik Neighbors was and is an absolute freak of nature. And I keep seeing these high reception totals, and you just kind of want to like maybe question yourself, but it's just not going to happen. Like even against strong defenses, he had 12 targets in this game. They played, I think he had 2 rushes or at least 1 rush on the end around. They're throwing short passes. They're throwing middle, deep. He is the number 1 guy. It's going to be hard for anybody to keep him out of a top 10 wide receiver. So I guess what that does is it eliminates Malik Neighbors' questions anymore. There doesn't need to be any because
30 targets in the last 2 games. 18 last week, 12 this week, and 2 scores here. I mean, Malik is the dude. And he was, I mean, that's a pretty good secondary in Cleveland. And he was torching those guys. So, and him and Daniel Jones building more trust. I mean, I don't think Daniel Jones is magically going to become good, but you don't have to be good. I mean, I think Malik Neighbors is fairly QB proof at this point if he's making it work with DJ. So he looks outstanding right now. So good.
Singletary also continues to kind of get the dominant side of it. He did have a fumble, but he had 43 in the air. He caught 4 for 43, 65.
Made a lot of people mad by kneeling at the 1. Najee kind of did the same thing in Pittsburgh by falling at the 1 so they could just kneel it out. But, you know, those things happen on occasion. It's rare to have them 2 in 1 week, I feel like.
Let me ask you on the Cleveland side, because the Giants are essentially like, Devin Singletary is a solid like RB2 flex. Maybe you're going to have some questions about it. Malik Neighbors is the guy. There's really nothing too crazy else there. Wandale, if you were like desperate. But with what you saw with Deshaun Watson, was this some about the Giants defense? Or do you think like he can come back to being semi-serviceable where we can be like, oh, Amari Cooper is an option. Oh, Jordan Akins I can stream because I have no good tight end options. And oh, is Jerome Ford someone that I can maybe relatively consistently put out there?
I just don't think we're going to have to worry about Deshaun too much longer. You can't take 8 sacks and lose this game at home against a bad Giants team. So I don't know if it's this week. I don't know if it's in 2 or 3 more weeks, but I don't think Deshaun is long for this job if the Browns keep losing, right? Nice to see him get Cooper back involved, especially, you know, Giants fumble on that first play, first throw, take the shot, and he got it. But outside of that, take that play away, and he's still like, 160 yards and 1 score and not looking good, taking 8 sacks. I mean, you know, that defensive line for the Giants finally showed up to play. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Thibodeau, that is a nasty line. So maybe they get better moving forward. Cleveland has
they have the Raiders.
I mean, that's not a good line.
Matt Crosby is going to eat him for lunch. He's going to eat him
Christian Wilkins may be more healthy as well in that game. So yeah, that doesn't look good moving forward. The one thing coming out of Cleveland I did think was a positive was we got back to Jerome Ford dominating snaps and touches here. You know, not a lot of touches, 14, but Foreman had 2, and the snaps were 53 out of 67 for Ford and only 11 for Foreman. So I don't know what the hell last week was when Deontay Foreman took all those snaps in the first quarter, right? And all those carries early in the game, and they kind of mixed those guys. And Pierre Strong was mixing in. Looked like they were going to this three-headed monster. They went right back to Jerome Ford. Maybe the fumble late won't help that for next week. They're kind of being weird about it, it seems. But if I was rostering Jerome Ford, I don't like this offense, but I like that he was back to getting all the snaps.
Dallas is at the Giants on Thursday Night Football. Cleveland at the Raiders. Chicago, they lost to Indianapolis 16-21. Indy won 21-16. Yeah, I got to eat that crow a little bit because, like, I guess statistically, Caleb really did have a good day. When you watch him,
threw the ball 52 times.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the number. I'll be dead honest with you. Completely forgot it was 363, 2 touchdowns. He's still wild in the pocket, doing crazy stuff. I will say, very positive to see that they decided very early on we're getting DJ Moore the ball. I bet his receptions over. He hit it in the first half. He had like 6, and midway through the second quarter, Adunze. Even though there were some weird, wild throws, Adunze ended up having like a huge day, which was great. But on the Colts side, Jonathan Taylor's always just like, he's in the trust tree. But Michael Pittman was really pushed down in the ranks this week. He was down, I think it was 31.5 PPR in the ECR, and he had a bad game, 4 for 36. But this is what I want to ask you. Are we done with Anthony Richardson? Because he was 10 for 20, 162, 2 interceptions. Everyone forgets about week 1. Everyone's like, it was the dumbest interception I've ever seen. Did you watch Will Levis in week 1? It's not the dumbest, but if we were doing our,
did you see A-Rich's one into the end zone today?
That's what I'm saying. No, that everybody is saying is that throw is the worst. No, Will Levis's was the worst. That might be the second worst. But my point is Anthony Richardson doesn't make good decisions. We're 3 games in. It's very Bryce Young-like decisions. It's very Caleb Williams week 1-like decisions. You don't see massive growth. Josh Downs didn't help it, make stupid plays.
Won.
Anthony Richardson, I know all this. That's great.
Yeah.
Didn't win for fantasy. He won for his real team. Anthony Richardson was pushed down to, I believe, I had him at like 12 at QB. I want to say he was maybe 10 or 12 or something like that. But we had these big discussions on the live stream that, hey, listen, guys like Derek Carr, Dak Prescott are probably much better options. And I said I would start Dak over Anthony Richardson today. But do you think we need to be more serious about Anthony Richardson can't really be the starter until he starts to rattle some of this up and prove? Like Sam Darnold and Justin Fields are wildly better options than him. And by the way, they've got Pittsburgh next week. Anthony Richardson's not a start in week 4. I don't care if he goes off and has 500 passing yards for 12 touchdowns. I couldn't justifiably start him with how bad he looks and the matchup next week.
Yeah, only in Superflex, right? I mean, 1 QB leagues, he's got it. He's almost got to be on the bench. If you're picking, you can snap up somebody off the wire right now because it's just bad. And it, like I said, they keep winning these games too. So they're not going to bench him. But he had 10 completions. Last week, I think he had 9, or maybe that was week 1. It's been patheticsville all the way around for A-Rich, and you're like depending on that rushing side to get you anything here. So
it's it's like the bad version of Justin Fields he is, but then Justin Fields is becoming like the median version of Anthony Richardson. And like
it's experience though. Like we should have seen this a little bit more, right? Because and I didn't have him as high as other people did. I still had him fairly high. I think I had him 7 or 8 in my rankings going into the season. But there are people putting him at 1, people putting him in the top 5 constantly. This guy had 3.5 starts last year, and he came in super raw. Like Caleb is obviously raw. We saw it last week. We saw it this week, right? Hasn't looked good, but you knew he had the passing chops to make it in the NFL. We're still not sure on Anthony Richardson. I think he'll be okay moving forward. I'm not panic dropping him or anything. I would make a contingency plan if I'm rostering him.
What if Darnold was out there? And it's
I would try to find somebody else to drop because I do still think the upside for Richardson is enormous. But if that's your decision and you don't have anybody else to drop, you have other injuries, I'm okay with it.
You're almost better served letting your opponent pick up Anthony Richardson and play against him. It's almost like a Trojan horse type of move. I'm totally open to this being fixed and changing, but I don't know if it's worthwhile.
You have to see around, and you have to wait around.
Especially when you can stream quarterbacks. If you're in a league that can stream quarterbacks, so there's not options. That's like a different discussion. But yes,
I want to see the
narrative.
Colts' upcoming schedule here too, because after Pittsburgh, got Jacksonville, at the Titans, against the Dolphins, at the Texans. So it's median after that.
It gets
but
better after this
yeah.
week. I guess
but
the
this week
point
looks
is
bad.
like the worth of sticking around for it when there are other options. But the panic, that's what I'm saying. The narrative is the panic that's around.
Yeah, and really, it's not even just Anthony Richardson. Now you have to worry about Downs, and obviously Pittman has to move down and all that stuff. They're not throwing the ball enough for these guys to succeed. Maybe they have to next week. Maybe Pittsburgh gets a jump on them early or whatever, and they have to pass the ball a little bit more. You'd think they would go to it more often, because you can't just run Jonathan Taylor 35 times every single game. It's not a viable strategy for the rest of the season.
Well, it is till it's not. Two quick hitters. Roschon. We saw Roschon all of a sudden just get like a bunch of touches. He was out of the backfield and catches. Do you think Roschon is officially going to eat into this for DeAndre Swift? Making Swift, everyone was like, it's Swift week. It's not. And is Swift even in the sniffing the flex conversation anymore?
I don't think so, because I thought this was the best matchup for him this season, right? Because the Colts just lost, maybe not for the season, but early in the season, they just lost to Forrest Buckner, their best run defender. Juju Brents was out as well, their best run secondary player. So I thought it was really weird strategy not to try to run up the middle. And if they're not doing it against the Colts, I don't know how much they're going to run this season. It's probably going to be a lot of Caleb Williams scrambling around for his life behind that pathetic offensive line. So the O-line can't run block. They're not pass blocking very well right now. So it may be a long year for the Bears. Maybe they're still just a little bit away.
Adunze, top 3 wide receiver, as in like top 36 wide receiver moving forward.
11
targets, 112, 6 catches.
Let's see when Keenan comes back, though, too. I mean, I don't think Caleb's going to have to pass the ball 50 times every single game. I think he's almost there. I don't want to put him quite in there yet.
Well, they have Super Bowl bound Rams that are the best team in the NFL. Their secondary is garbage, and the Rams.
Well, let's put him in that Jennings situation. And yes,
but that's
Odunze's probably going to be top 36 this week for sure.
Yeah, that was my point. Is they're facing the Rams, and Juwan Jennings just absolutely blasted them. So something for you guys to check out, and maybe makes him even just a tiny bit more viable. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but want to remind you guys to check out our Discord, fantasypros.com/chat, and look at that. There's Rome Odunze on the screen. How do you like them apples in that transition? Literally not even planned. Join our Discord today, fantasypros.com/chat. We got an awesome community. People are talking football every single day, every single minute, giving suggestions. We have our touchdown calls, and we have premium podcasts that you guys can check out. Monday, Bogman, myself, and Pizza Pia at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can be a part of the podcast. We've got the Extra Point with Andrew Erickson and myself Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And Bogman and Fitz are even jumping around every like third Tuesday or Thursday, or third Tuesday of every month or whatever, when the moon is out and it's like half blood moon.
Third
that you guys
Tuesday
are
at 5 p.m. Eastern every single month. That's what it is.
It just always gets me. All right, let's keep going here. Seattle beat up on Miami. I kind of thought Miami could maybe be efficient. Skylar Thompson, absolutely bad. He ends up getting hurt. They had to go to Tim Boyle, which was even worse. Seattle wins 24-3. You know, Charbonnet looked awesome. I actually want to move. I want to move this along. I don't even want to focus on Seattle. DK Metcalf was absolutely incredible. He continues to be great. JSN did not have the big game. Me and Tom were going about this. He thought JSN was going off. It ended up being Lockett. Charbonnet's good. But like, what is your now panic level for Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and even Achane? Because Skylar Thompson really, really bottled down this offense that all of them really weren't relevant. And I was pretty dismissive of the thought of even doing anything with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, well, look, the good news is that they play Tennessee next week, right? At home. They get an extra day of rest, too. I just don't think that this was a very good spot for Skylar Thompson to start. They didn't have, obviously Tua's not coming back anytime soon. So Seattle is just a tough place to play, especially your first start of the season. So I didn't think that was good. He got hurt as well. The offense looked bad. So I understand the want and need to panic about Tyreek. Let's see how hurt Skylar is, because I do think that working with McDaniel, I think it could get better this season. You're not trading him now. You're going to get peanuts for him, right? I don't think you're trading him. I'm not doing it right now. I think his value is too low. I think they'll get better. My worry is do they go to Huntley? Because if they go to Huntley, are they going to pass fewer times? It seems like maybe that would be the way to go. So I'm just not really sure what to think about this offense currently, but if I'm doing anything, I'm on the holding pattern with everything Miami. I'm not trading Achane. I'm not trading Tyreek. I'm not trading Waddle because you're not going to get enough back to replace them, I feel like right now. So
I would say anything that is really low, I'm buying. If someone's like really like, I gotta get out of here, like then I'm gonna probably buy on the super cheap, whatever that version of super cheap is for like Tyreek, even Waddle. Obviously, Achane's not gonna.
Would you trade Ayuk right now for Tyreek?
Probably. I mean, there's a lot of Ayuk stuff in the chat. People are really pissed. Ayuk looked bad, by the way. Pretty cool when you play in the preseason. You have some reps. He kept dropping balls and not getting great separation. But also, that was my massive point about Juwan Jennings this whole week. Is like Brandon Ayuk is great, but you're going to have a defensive focal point on it, and they use Jennings in that move around role to kind of float around on the inside.
I went back and looked. By the way, you were the 7th highest ranker on Jennings.
It's embarrassing.
Top 10.
If we had looked on Wednesday, number 1. And then as soon as Kittle was out, everybody else jumped in. I was just there.
I think somebody had him like 22, but yeah, I mean, 36.
I think Scott Engel had him like 27. Actually,
the only person I Pia had him like
no, and that's the thing. He like argued with me about Jennings. Oh, whatever. And then as soon as Kittle was out, and then he beat me on the rank. Of course, it's so annoying, but whatever. Carolina, they beat the Raiders 36-22. Andy Dalton absolutely made everybody relevant. That's kind of the big thing. Deontay Johnson now startable. If Thielen doesn't miss time, you could look at that. Chuba Hubbard kind of back to life. Chuba now looking better than Chase Brown or like a Rico Dowdle or anything like that. And then on the Raiders side, Brock Bowers kind of tapered back a little bit, and we did not see Zamir White. We saw 10 carries from Zamir White, but a lot of that was because they were getting trounced. So Carolina, I think the big thing here is Andy Dalton has put a revival back on this team, and the offensive pieces are now viable again.
Yeah, I mean, Chuba Hubbard, 21 for 114, 5 catches for 55 and a score. Deontay, 8 for 122 and a score. This is Red Rifle Revival over here. This is a video game. That was outstanding. I know that's the Raiders, right? And their defense isn't the best in the NFL, but they're okay. And to see Andy Dalton go off like this is just a real positive towards everyone, specifically guys like DJ and Chuba Hubbard. So, I mean, I even saw Tommy Tremble catch a big pass in there at one point as well. So, on the other side, though, Minshew got benched. Aiden O'Connell took over at the end of this game, threw 9 completions on 12 passes. He threw a touchdown late as well to Jacoby Myers. So I guess we're going to see what's going on with the Raiders next week. If they're going to end up sticking with Minshew or going back to him, maybe they just said, we can't protect him right now, so we're going to put in O'Connell. I don't know, but usually you don't do it that early. So looks like maybe O'Connell is the guy moving forward. What is his rapport going to be like with Brock Bowers, right? What is it going to be like with the rest of this offense? That could change a lot here. And hopefully they're not getting trounced by the likes of Carolina moving forward. We can see more from Zamir White, but that whole run game has been ugly. And again, they pull Zamir White out at the goal line, give Alexander Madison the touchdown, and he had 3 carries, and one of them was for the score. Super frustrating.
Who would you rather have rest of the season, Chuba or Zamir White?
Chuba.
I think it's Chuba. If the return to the starting lineup for Andy Dalton was Red Dead Redemption, next week, Carolina hosts Cincinnati. It's Red Dead Redemption 2.
Little revival. Little revenge game. Let's get it,
gentlemen. The Dallas Cowboys, they did attempt to make that comeback, but Baltimore ended up beating them, I believe, 28-25. Derrick Henry absolutely went off, 2 scores, I think over 150 on the ground. Dak ended up having like a decent day, but threw touchdowns to nobody that helped anybody. It was like Turbin and Tolbert, like nothing just for anybody whatsoever. There's no run game in Dallas anymore. They don't exist. What do you want to break down as far as Baltimore goes? Because it was just kind of like everything hit on. I feel like everything hit on all cylinders. Where the Cowboys, it was like everything you needed was just kind of apart. Outside of Ferguson, did look good coming back. I told someone I wasn't starting Goddard and I was starting Ferguson, and I was like, God. But then Ferguson had like a pretty solid day, which didn't make me feel awful.
Well, I tell you what didn't is Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews did not have a catch in this game. Isaiah likely had 1.
Oh, God, I didn't even realize it. Jeez.
Yeah. Charlie Kohler had 1 for 30. I mean, Mark Andrews, someone said it in the chat, you had a great game at right guard today. It's been pathetic.
I think they said he threw 2 weeks had already had more blocking plays than like an entire season of like last year. I know he missed some time last year or whatever. It was like 2% of plays he was staying in line, and it was like it's over like 10% this year.
I mean, here's the good news is Lamar only had to throw 15 times in this game. He had 12 completions, right? So you would like to see within 15 times Mark Andrews get involved. So I guess there's obviously room for growth here for Mark Andrews, but it looks bad right now. And I don't blame people for panicking. That is one I am genuinely worried about at this point. And I would probably start many other tight ends over him at this point because he's just not getting involved. And if Derrick Henry is going to be able to run downhill like he did today, he's just out of the game plan right now. It's Zay Flowers. It's whoever is open. I mean, that's kind of what the game plan was today. And then keep it on the ground. 25 rushes for Henry, 14 for Jackson, 5 for Hill. Zay Flowers got a rush in there. So what is that? That's 39. That's 47 rushes to 15 pass attempts. It's not good for anybody catching the ball in Baltimore.
No, and there is a time, and this I want to bring this back to like the Anthony Richardson thing where it's like, hey, listen, I say this all the time. I don't speak in affirmatives like this is how it is forever. No, Anthony Richardson could totally bounce back and be a league winner if someone cut him and you picked him up. Mark Andrews can totally bounce back, but you do have to come to terms at some point that it's like, these guys can't hurt me for now. And I'm not advocating to cut, but like, if you got to put Mark Andrews on the bench and then they go off and you're like, well, you have to deal with that because it's like, okay, well, where were you if you were to bench when he had those negative games? There are players that are getting to the point where you have to prove it to me. Anthony Richardson, you have to prove it to me that I can start you. Mark Andrews, you got to prove it to me that you can start. So it's like, if there is something else out there, sure, Pat Freiermuth versus Mark Andrews, you could be like, I'll just do Mark Andrews or whatever. But like when there are real options out there, tight ends that are kind of bouncing back up.
We skipped over that with all of those 52 passes, but he had a huge game today. I think I'd rather go with him over Mark Andrews moving forward. And that was not the case, in the preseason and in game 1. They were going to Everett more, but this week I didn't see the snap count on Gerald Everett versus Cole Kmet, but I guarantee you Cole Kmet was way more involved. So, I mean, there are other options because Mark Andrews is just not getting it done right now.
No. 2 more games here. This is the worst game of the day. Great for a lot of other things. The San Francisco 49ers absolutely blew the game. The Rams won 27-24 because the Niners were pathetic, and they let the Rams come back in, and bad special teams. They kicked a field goal after Moody missed a field goal, could have gone to overtime. But that's not the story. The story is how right I was on all the bet. Or I guess it was Juwan Jennings was really the story. 11 catches, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. Bogman, Tom Strachan and I had a conversation on the live stream, not to call him. He knows we were tweeting about it, but he was like, I got him at wide receiver 60. And I was like, Tom, he's a top 30 wide receiver this week, like especially with Kittle out. If everyone wanted to make the arguments with me when Kittle was still in, I get like where you're going with it. It didn't change my perspective of it. When Kittle came out, it was like he's going to get targets. If you watch the Niners, this is what they do. Ayuk looked bad, but he still had 10 targets. But Juwan Jennings was always open because they were using that deeper inline route. He finds ways to get the ball. But there's a lot of people in the chat. There was someone saying, should I trade Ayuk for Jennings? Is Jennings for real? There's a level of Jennings being real. The problem is when Debo comes back or when Kittle comes back, Jennings
all gets healthy. I mean, he's not
sadly
Jennings right now, but yeah.
I advocate that you earlier in the week trade for Jordan Mason. Just trade him like he's going to be a starter for the rest of the year because that could happen. There's never been a higher time to trade Juwan Jennings because we're not going to replicate this against that defense. There's too many weapons coming back, but he can be relevant. But if you could get Ayuk for Juwan Jennings, 100%. I'm 100% doing that. But this game won people weeks, won me money. That's just the way this was. He was kind of a no-brain starter if you could do it, but there were big questions, Boggs. Pittman versus Juwan Jennings. That was a tough one. And I know someone tweeted like that. Their heart hurt. I didn't tell them to not, but their heart hurt that they had Juwan Jennings on the bench for Pittman.
Yeah, and a lot of people had Jennings on the bench because it seems like, okay, well, Debo's out. Let's pick this guy up. Let's see what he does, and then maybe we can get a start once in a blue moon or something. I have many 16-man leagues, so I had Jennings in starting spots in a bunch of them. So that was nice. But the thing here is, look, Purdy is looking for him. He's like Purdy's first look on almost every single pass in this game. It felt like 12 targets. Ayuk had 10. Nobody else had more than 3, though. Those are the 2 guys working right now in that system. They don't dump the ball off to Jordan Mason. It's not like Christian McCaffrey.
It's the Debo role. That's the big thing. It's he literally stepped into the Debo role, and the Debo role is like a first look thing that Purdy wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, with all those guys out and plus a back that doesn't really catch the ball out of the backfield, Mason worked on it a ton, looked good the first couple of weeks passing the ball. It just didn't happen in this game for whatever reason. And I also kind of understand this week because I looked at this game, Welsh, and I said, I think the Niners are going to roll the Rams. They're so hurt. I know it's a division game. And that's how the game started. And the Rams came roaring back when the Niners were on their laurels and ended up winning this game. But yeah, I mean, Jennings is probably a start moving forward, at least when Debo's down. We're assuming Kittle comes back somewhat soon, right? So we'll see.
Yeah, a couple things. Let's all just say a nice word for Ezra, who dropped Jennings in one league and then played against him. So Ezra, we feel for you. And Zuz asked a good question. Definitely would be worth wasting a number 1 waiver on Jennings this week. And that's going to be the big thing. I think this is a no-brainer. Jennings will be at the very tippy top of waivers this week because Cam Akers kind of dominated, I think, some last week. I don't think he's going to be out there. If he was, he would, running backs, blah, blah, blah. But there's no running back that's jumping into that spot. Juwan Jennings will be the guy because he's also going to kind of continue this role probably for 1 to 2 more weeks. And even when Debo's back, I think he could be a deep league flex option. With Debo out, he's a top 3 starting wide receiver. And now everybody is going to buy into it. So yeah, it probably would be worth picking up Jennings. And I'll just say it, buy low on Brandon Ayuk this week. If everybody is out, he's looked rusty, but he's one of the best route runners in the NFL. He's more sure-handed than this game showed. And
he's going to get better.
The defense just he shut himself out a little bit. Also, just want to point out on the Rams side quickly, we're going long here, but Kyron Williams, absolutely phenomenal in this game. 3 touchdowns, caught the ball out of the backfield a little bit, was very efficient on those 3 scores. And wasn't Demarcus Robinson. It really wasn't even Jordan Whittington, which everybody was into. Tutu Atwell, if you watch the game, they used him in motion so much, and they had massive success against the Niners, putting him in motion and going middle of the field. I actually think that can continue. So Tutu Atwell might be someone to watch for deeper league stuff because they're going against the Bears next week, and the Bears are going to shut the outside corners down most likely. So Tutu might be like a viable deep league option as the Niners are hosting the Patriots.
They need the deep option, and that is him. And that's why he had that 50-yarder, right? And I mean, Demarcus Robinson caught a 32-yarder or whatever, but Tutu is now the guy on the field that is going to extend the defense. And so they're going to have to at least take shots to him early in the game to get those linebackers and corners to drop back a step or 2. So it was nice to see him have 5 targets in this game. And if that grows in the future, he could have a nice, run here while the other guys are down.
Yeah, but number 1 waiver claim, Juwan Jennings. I think that'll be at the tippy top of what we're talking about this week. Final game here. The Detroit Lions beat the Arizona Cardinals 20-13. A lot of those high score games just didn't really work out. Yeah, it was weird. There was a lot of, we had more Monty than Gibbs, but Gibbs also scored a touchdown. Laporta ended up getting hurt. We talked about that earlier. Jameson Williams kind of disappeared, and both the tight ends were just kind of quiet. So give us any final synopsis on this Cardinal Lions game as far as fantasy relevance that we need to take into next week.
Yeah, I don't. So, we saw Shaheed get blanked. We saw Jameson Williams not have a great game here. I think Jameson's going to be okay though. 9 targets in the first game, 11 in the second game, only 3 in this game. Cardinals did a good job of not allowing him to catch the ball. So I think Jameson is going to be fine moving forward. This was just, hey, look, Monty is working. Let's just feed him the ball. And that's what happened in this game. Kind of got away from him on the Cardinals side. My Marvin Harrison bet was 64.5 yards, and he had 64.
Oh no, I see. I got it at 57.5 earlier. So
I know, just so frustrating. Kyler looked pretty decent though, but the Lions did a good job of shutting down this run game, and the Cardinals got down and had to throw the ball 34 times. Not what you want to do, especially, 9 rushes for Connor, 2 for Benson, 2 for DeMarcado. It's just abandoning the run game. It's just not a way to win games, unless you have Justin Jefferson on your team. So Harrison looked great in the first half. They shut him down the second. We'll see how bad. McBride is hurt as well. I expect the Cardinals to get a little bit better. Who are they playing next week?
Well, I'll tell you, they're going against Washington, because I was about to give you the narrative of like, hey, listen, I continuously don't think Kyler is as good as we all want him to be. Those are the type of games where you have to sling the ball, where we want to see him running and getting it to Marvin Harrison.
He ran for 45 yards.
And that's one of the things. Like, it still works, but it doesn't become, and I want to say like, ooh, he's not going to be a top 5. He's a smash against Washington next week. Marvin Harrison's going to catch 2 touchdowns. Michael Wilson's going to catch 1. Dortch. It's going to be ridiculous. He's going to go off. This will be a good get right situation. I do think the big key though is Marvin Harrison 2 straight weeks with the target. Still, he dropped a really easy one, which would have been like a 30-yarder right at the goal line. He still has those issues, but he's getting targeted more, and he had another really good game. So that can make you feel comfortable about that early week 1 bye. And we'll have to monitor the Lions situation. I think Jameson will bounce back. They've got Seattle next week, but we're going to have to continuously monitor what happens with Laporta, because if Laporta does go down, that will speak a little bit more to Jameson Williams bouncing back up. And just if you guys cared at all, Kirk Cousins went 5 for 5 on his opening drive on Sunday Night Football. Drake London 1 catch and a touchdown. There you go. And early on in the first drive for the Chiefs, 4 different people have run the ball. Patrick Mahomes, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and Carson Steele does have 2 carries. I'm playing the under there. So the diverse offense still kind of keeps working. Falcons were pretty efficient.
They just had a full house look, and they gave the ball to Rashee Rice out of it in the backfield.
Yeah, that's that one carry for 1 yard. So
weird.
It's going to probably continuously get weird. Hopefully it won't get too weird for you guys, because we got you back all week long over on My Playbook. Sync up your leagues. If you haven't already, go and get it. You can get all the waiver assistance that you possibly need. It'll be right, and you get suggestions in your mailbox, but also the app is going to tell you on your own league page. You can open like Sleeper or whatever, and it'll say, hey, you should do this. Also, you got some trades to do. Check out the trade analyzer on My Playbook. You get instant advice for all of your who should I trade questions, with recommendations from over 100 experts side by side. Also, start and sit, you got it. And you got some sit it and forget it lineup stuff. You can do that with My Playbook. It'll auto swap out players. You can do the full autopilot mode. Check it all out. Download My Playbook on FantasyPros today. You can go over to your app, or you can just do fantasypros.com/myplaybook to get it set. And if you are on the YouTube side, I want you to win this Devontae Smith helmet. He's not wearing one for a couple weeks, but maybe you can. fantasypros.com/contest. All you got to do, fill it out. Make sure you liked us. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, and you can get multiple entries. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube and get notifications so you know what's going down. Friends, that is it. Whoa, that's the wrong thing. We have got a wrong outlay. We have got a full packed week for you. Waiver shows coming up, breaking down everything Monday right here on the channel. We're doing waivers, we're doing trades, we're doing start and sit. We got it all. So make sure you're subscribed on the podcast and on this. I hope your week 3 was better than the 49ers actual. I hope you had a very Juwan Jennings-like week. Looking forward to talking to you all going into week 4. That's Bogman. I'm Welsh. We'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros, the football podcast. Peace out for now, friends. Bye-bye.